Hello everyone. For today's topic, we have biological foundation of human development. We have the following learning objectives. 1. Explain the role of genetics in prenatal development. 2. Explain the main stages of prenatal development. And 3. Describe approaches to childbirth and the labor and delivery process. Here are the specific learning outcomes for biological foundations of human development. To explain the role of genetics in prenatal development, so we're going to talk about evolutionary psychology perspective of lifespan development. We're going to describe genetic components of conception. We're talking about genes and their importance in genetic inheritance. We're describing chromosomal abnormalities, explain the value of prenatal testing, describe the interaction between genetics and the environment. Lastly, to compare monozygotic and dizygotic twins. So let's talk about evolutionary psychology. Evolutionary psychology focuses on how universal patterns of behavior and cognitive process have evolved over time. Evolutionary psychologists study a variety of psychological phenomena that may have evolved as adaptations, including the fear response. Example, are you afraid of the snake, of some animals, spiders? We have food preferences. You like pizza? Do you like cake? You like sweets? How about mate selection? How are you going to choose any man or any woman? And cooperative behaviors. Are you a person who is kind or altruistic, or are you somebody who is selfish? Evolutionary psychology can be applied to any topic studied by psychologists. It is based on Darwin's theory of evolution, published in 1859. Evolutionary psychologists argue that behavior is strongly influenced by inherited factors. All human beings act to enhance their inclusive fitness. What is this inclusive fitness? To increase the frequency and distribution of their genes in future generations. So, kailangan maparami, mapropagate, no? Maparami yung offspring natin for future generations. And one of the main concerns of evolutionary psychology is to identify factors that maximize reproductive success. According to evolutionary explanations of human reproductive behavior, males and females have an interest in selecting partners who will enhance their reproductive success and inclusive fitness. So here is the mate choice theory by Boss in 1989. So according to this theory, women tend to look for guys who have resources like wealth, power, or who are showy. And then guys tend to look for women with reproductive traits like big childbearing hips, big boobs, smooth skin, healthy, and youthful. So itong mga description natin sa mga lalaki na gusto ng mga babae, wealth, power, showy, yung mga may kotse, maraming ari-arian, these are sometimes referred to as good genes and good provider. These are the good attributes in males. Para naman sa mga males, ang description naman dito sa mga reproductive traits, para maging mabilis, no, yung production ng offspring. At saka tinitignan din nila kung yung babae ay hindi na rin makikipag-mate with other men. So for reproduction, dapat healthy, dapat fertile, at saka faithful yung mga babae. Siyempre para ma-assure yung mga lalaki na magpapatuloy yung kanilang generation. So, similar with the theory of mate selection ni Bass, we have the theory of natural selection. This is by Darwin. Okay, this refers to the survival and reproduction of organisms better suited for their environment over those poorly suited. Evolutionary psychology enhances our understanding of development through how we choose mates and achieve reproductive success. So with this theory of natural selection, it's very important. Kaya nga, we have the mate choices, men would tend to look for women who are healthy, who are youthful, because iisipin mo na pag healthy sila, pag youthful sila, they can take care of their babies, of the children, hanggang sa lumaki, hanggang sa mag-survive yung mga bata. Kasi siyempre, di ba, kapag hindi healthy, hindi youthful, may posibilidad na madaling mamamatay Kaya healthy yung pipiliin natin. And then for the women, ang gusto nila good provider, may good genes, kasama na rin yun na kaya niyang i-provide dun sa family yung kailangan ng mga pamilya, syempre para mag-survive din yung mga anak at saka mga children. So here's an example of natural selection. So each species shows variation. Diba? Iba-iba tayo, no? We talk about this. We have different height, we have different weight. Diba yun sa growth? So, merong small na giraffe. Sabi dun sa tall, get off my land, you lang kinkit. And then, second, there is competition within each species for food, living space, water, and mates. Diba kaya nga halimbawa kung mas marami na ngayon ng mga babae, tas konti na lang ang mga lalaki, meron ng competition sa mga mates, no, ng mga lalaki. And then, third, the better adapted members of these species are more likely to survive. Okay? Ito yung survival of the fittest. So, itong mga tall na giraffe, mas makaka-adapt sila dun sa environment nila kasi mas tall sila. They can reach yung matataas na puno compare dun sa short. Diba? So, yung mga members ng mga tall na giraffe, they are more likely to survive kasi sila yung makakakuha ng pagkain. So, and the fourth one, these survivors will pass on their better genes to their offspring who will also show this beneficial variation. So, ang mangyayari, mawawala ng offspring tong si short na giraffe, kaya meron tayo ngayon, kaya mga giraffe natin ngayon ay tall, matataas. Kasi nawala na yung mga short na giraffe. Hindi sila nag-survive. So, we have natural selection naman na example for humans. One is each species shows variation, di ba? We have differences in height, we have differences in weight, di ba? So this, what's this, no? May injection. Sabi niya, get off my land. So pinaalis niya to. Yung may red sa shirt. So, similarly, there is competition within each species for food, living space, water, and meats. So, like if you are not adaptive, kung hindi ka madiskarte, paano kung wala kang makain, wala kang living space or water, diba wala magsusupport sa'yo, what's gonna happen? So, kung sino yung mga madidiskarte, yung mga better adapted members of this species are more likely to survive. Yan, the survival of the fittest. So, etong isa, mas nag-survive yung nagkaroon siya ng mga offspring. Diba? Itong isa yung walang red yung shirt niya na circle. So, here naman sabi, may kids died. Namatay yung mga anak nito kasi hindi sila naka-adapt to the environment. Sabi pa nito, cool. So, these survivors will pass on their better genes to their offspring who will also show this beneficial variation. So, come to think of it, if we're going to talk about pregnancy or prenatal period, and will link this to natural selection, merong mga na-fertilized egg na hindi nagtutuloy into pregnancy. So, kung doon pa lang, something is wrong. Okay, doon pa lang sa process ng pregnancy, ng fertilization, hindi na sila nag-survive, di ba? Hindi naka-adapt yung, so something can be wrong with the sperm or the egg cell, or something is wrong inside the uterus, no, of the mother during the pregnancy. So another example for natural selection is this one, no? Natural selection may favor a tendency to discriminate amongst others who require help according to their degree of relatedness. So, kasi yung question natin, di ba, yung cooperative behavior kanina, no? We mentioned that earlier. So, sino ba yung mga taong tutulungan mo? So, natural selection daw ay there's an explanation for that. Now, people should be able to weigh up the costs or benefits of the outcomes of certain social situations, especially those situations involving a decision as to whether to help someone or not. So, if we're going back to the natural selection, kasama doon, di ba? Halimbawa, may scarcity ng resources, no? Kulang ang mga resources mo kasi nga merong competition. Pero, tutulong ka ba? Mag-help ka ba, no? Magiging altruistic ka ba? Magiging kind ka ba? Ngayon, kung magiging kind ka at kung meron ka pipiliin para tulungan, sino ang iyong tutulungan? So, sabi rito, wini-weigh yung cost and benefit. Like, meron ka bang mabe-benefit? No, kaya meron tayong tinatawag ng friends with benefits, kaya meron tayong tutulungan na tao kapag alam natin na matutulungan din nila tayo. Diba? We are very interested in who is related to who is having a relationship with who, as such information may well influence our behavior to that person. Kasi nga kung try to think of the hunters, gatherer, no, that yung mga ancestors natin. Kapag may conflict or gera, you need the other people to help you. Kaya meron nga ganito, you weigh up the cost or benefits of the outcome of certain social situations. So this is like helpful, no? Like today, no, kung sa politics, kung sinong mga tutulungan mo, no? Kung sinong tutulungan ng mga mayayaman. Yung mga mayayaman, they would help, no, mga politician na nagra-run for politics kasi they know that meron silang makukuha na benefits sa pag-e-endorso nila ng mga politiko. So I'd like to talk about, again, about mate selection, no, the evolutionary perspective, no. Because these questions like, bakit yung mga lalaki, ang dami nilang babae, I mean, minsan naman kahit yung mga babae, marami din naman lalaki. Pero in general, no, men can be polygamous. So if they are polygamous, even women. Kasi this is the explanation. Men and women by nature must differ in their optimal mating behaviors. Kasi women must be highly selective because they are biologically limited in the number of children they can bear and raise in a lifetime. 9 months mong i-carry yung baby. Hindi ka naman pwedeng every year, pwede ba every year magbubuntis ka hanggang 50 ka para makarami ka ng 50 anak kung 20 ka plus another 30 years, di ba? Hindi mo na rin yan kayang maaalagaan. Kaya nga sinasabi na kailangan ng lalaki ng katuwang, no, para mag-alaga, para mag-survive yung mga children. And then men can father an unlimited number of children and ensure their reproductive success by inseminating many women. Mga lalaki pwede yan, anak ng anak lang, kahit gaano karami yung kanilang mga maaanakan. Kasi hindi naman sila yung nagbubuntis. Kaya marami rin silang inaanakan para marami silang offspring. Yun yung sinasabi dun sa evolutionary perspective. So here are other researches regarding the topic. No, sabi, men desire more sexual diversity. Mas madaming partner, iba-iba. So, according to this mga researchers, and then men have lower standards for short term. So, pagka ikaw ay kaya ng mga lalaki na short-term relationships lang. Pero pagka short-term, lower standards, I mean kahit sino lang. And men have more sexual partners when they can. Men have more reproductive variances. And men are more likely to pay for sex. So, ito yung mga yun. This is because of the evolutionary perspective. Next, let's talk about heredity and chromosomes. So, we have the sperm and ova. There are two types of gametes involved in reproduction. We have the male gametes or the sperm and the female gametes are the ova. The male gametes are produced in the testes through spermatogenesis beginning at about 12 years of age. And then female gametes are stored in the ovaries and are present at birth, though immature with only about 400 becoming mature eggs. Beginning at puberty, one ovum ripens and is released about every 28 days, a process called oogenesis. Once a ripened egg is released from the ovary, it moves into the fallopian tube and reaches the uterus in 3 to 4 days. Once a single sperm unites with the nucleus of the egg, a new cell with the combined genetic information from both parents is a zygote. Okay, that's why sinasabi natin na yung mga lalaki anak lang ng anak, 'di ba? Nagsasabay lang sila ng mga sperm cell nila, pero yung mga babae, kailan lang meron yung egg nila para sila mabuntis? Every 28 days. So mababa pa rin yung chances na ikaw ay pwedeng mabuntis. May timing dapat siya. So we have the sperm, we have the ova, and then we have the zygote, no? We have a fertilized egg. What's in those fertilized egg? No, yung mga cells na coming from the sperm and the ova. So we have the chromosomes, the DNA, and the alleles. So we have chromosomes. These are the long strings of genetic material known as DNA, no? Deoxyribonucleic acid. So DNA is a helix-shaped molecule made up of nucleotide-based pairs. We have adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine. Each chromosome has sequences of DNA makeup genes that control a number of visible characteristics. Each gene has multiple variations or alleles. These are specific versions of genes like hair color. In meiosis, segments of the chromosomes from each parent form pairs and genetic segments are exchanged as determined by change. So we have the adenine, guanine, cytosine, and thymine for the DNA that contains our genetic makeup. What are alleles? Now, for every gene, you can have two of the same allele. Example, itong blue, this would represent allele for blue eyes. Or you can have two different allele. One recessive allele na blue for blue eyes, and then one dominant allele for brown eyes. A recessive allele will only produce a phenotype if there is no dominant allele present. So here, wala naman siyang dominant na allele, no? Yung capital A for brown. So kaya magkakaroon ng blue eyes or recessive allele, kaya lang siya lalabas. So in other words, you need two copies of the recessive allele. Parang ito, no? Tsaka here, no? Here, no? You have two copies of the recessive allele in order to have the trait that it codes for. Recessive alleles are symbolized by lowercase. So A here, this is dominant. Brown eye siya. Ito, brown eyes pa rin. Ito, brown eyes pa rin. Dito lang siya magkakaroon ng blue eyes. So we have again these three terms, genotype, phenotype, and autosomes. So a genotype is the genetic makeup of the individual, yung genes niya, while the phenotype refers to the person's inherited physical characteristics. 22 of chromosomes from each parent are similar in length to a corresponding chromosome from the other parent, with the remaining chromosome looks like an X or Y. So that is the 23rd chromosome. The genetic inheritance of traits for humans is based upon Gormendel's model of inheritance. Yung Gormendel, siya yung father of genetics. Genes on autosomes or any chromosomes other than the sex chromosomes. So those are the 22 pairs of chromosomes, no, yung autosomes. They have alleles and their associated traits are autosomal dominant or autosomal recessive. Ito na yung diniscuss natin kanina na allele. Paano ka nagkaroon ng blue eyes? Because you have two recessive alleles. And saan mo nakuha yun? Each parent contributes half the genetic information carried by the offspring, with the resulting characteristics determined by the interaction of parental genetic material. So to understand better what is a genotype and a phenotype, so we refer to a genotype, so these are the genes. Now this is the combination of alleles. And then the phenotype is the organism's appearance or yung expression ng genes, yung appearance niya. Like here, no, we have a widow's peak, is a forehead or a straight line. Here, this is a dalawang recessive. Ito, dominant kasi yung widow's peak. So what determines the chromosomal sex of the child? Okay, we have 22 chromosomes from each parent. They are similar in length. If you're going to look at this image, now this is the karyotype. So, yung 1 to 22, now these are the pairs of chromosome or sabi natin, these are the autosomes. Hindi sila yung mga sex chromosome. And then the 23rd pair of chromosome contains either two X chromosomes or an X and a Y. In this case, the 23rd chromosome contains an X and a Y. So this is a male. Saan galing tong 23rd? Saan galing yung sex chromosome? No? This is from the fertilization. Half of sperm, diba yung sperm ng father, half of the sperm contain a Y chromosome. And then all of the ova contain an X chromosomes. If this one, the 23rd position, contains two chromosomes, 2X chromosome, pagka 2X, that would be a female. And then XY siya kapag male. So figure 4 displays the sex determination, no? Para magkaroon ng babae or lalaki na baby. So here you have your parent, your mother, XX chromosomes on the 23rd pair. For the father, you have XY on the 23rd pair of chromosomes. And then yung gametes nila, this will be the ova. For the female, that would always contain an X chromosome. And then for the male, yung sperm, it's either an X or a Y. So during fertilization, syempre hindi mo alam yan kung anong klaseng sperm, kung X or Y sperm yung nasa male. But for the female, for the ova, it's always the X. So during fertilization, ito yung zygote, no? So if it's the X sperm, magmi-meet siya dito sa ova ng female, that would be a female. So again, if it's the X-ulit, XX female, and then if fortunately, no, parents or families would want a boy. So you have an X for the female, and then you'll have a Y. For the sperms, you have an X, well, this is supposed to be a male, and then XY again. So it's a male. So many potential parents have a clear preference for having a boy or a girl and would like to determine the sex of the child. Through the years, a number of tips have been offered for the potential parents to maximize their chances for having either a son or daughter as they prefer. You have maybe in your family, no, pwedeng apat na lalaking magkakasunod, tapos naghahabol sila ng babae or puro babae yung mga baby. And then maghahabol sila ng lalaki. So what are these steps na sinasabi? An example, it's suggested that sperm which carry a Y chromosome are more fragile than those carrying an X. So if a couple desires a male child, they can take measures to maximize the chance that the Y sperm reaches the egg. This involves having intercourse 48 hours after ovulation, which helps the Y sperm have a shorter journey to reach the egg. Paano malalaman na nag-ovulate ka na? Siyempre, magpapa-ultrasound ka dyan para malalaman mo kung talagang nag-release na ng egg or nandun ka na sa ovulation period. Dowsing to create a more alkaline environment in the vagina. Dowsing, meron silang ginagamit, no? Tapos, to clean the vagina and having the female reach orgasm first so that sperm are not pushed out of the vagina during orgasm. So, ang dami nilang tips na sinasabi para magkaroon ka ng anak na lalaki. So, today, however, there is a new technology available that makes it possible to isolate sperm containing either an X or a Y, depending on the preference, and use that sperm to fertilize a mother's egg. So that would be in vitro fertilization. So here now we have Joel Cruz, yung famous na gumagawa ng perfume, no? Yung mga nanay ng anak niya ay mga foreigner. Pero ito ay sperm niya. Okay, next we have chromosomal abnormalities and genetic testing. Chromosomal abnormalities occur when the chromosome structure is altered and includes, so ito yung mga yun, deletions. So here, in this part, etong sa number 1, this part is na-delete na wala. So naging short lang siya, ganyan. And then, duplications, some portion is duplicated. So here, itong part na to, so napunta siya ron, tapos nag-duplicate siya, naging dalawa. Kaya siya naging duplication. We also have translocations, inversions. Pag translocations, there are a portion that's transferred to another. And then inversions, portion has broken off and reattached upside down na invert. So, here, bumaliktad siya. O, kung titignan mo, eto yung dalawang line, bumaliktad siya, eto yung dalawang line. And then, eto yung space sa ilalim. Eto yung naging space niya na invert. So, that's inversion. And then, insertion, portion has been deleted and inserted into another chromosomes. So, try to imagine. Ito na broken off, tapos nag-attach siya rito. And rings, portion has broken off and form a circle. So, ito, this should be pahaba na ganyan. Ang nangyari, parang na ganun siya yung parang ahas na kinagat yung tail. And then, isochromosome, formed by the mirror image copy of a chromosome segment. So, one of the most common chromosomal abnormalities is on pair 21, or kilala to sa trisomy 21 or the Down syndrome. A chromosomal abnormality on pair 23 results in a sex-linked chromosomal abnormality kasi yun yung mga sex chromosomes. So, we have an example for those in the 23rd chromosome. Now, we have Turner syndrome. This occurs in 1 of 2,500 live female births when an ovum lacking a chromosome is fertilized by a sperm with an X chromosome, so resulting in a zygote with an XO composition. So, naiwan lang sa kanya is yung sperm na wala yung X na galing dun sa female. Empty yung ovum. Empty yung ovum ng female. Then we have Klinefelter syndrome, XXY, occurs in 1 out of 700 live male birds and results when the ovum containing an extra X chromosome is fertilized by a Y sperm. So yung ovum, instead na X lang, XX. Tapos, na-fertilize siya by a Y sperm, naging siyang XXY. I think meron din tong XXX kapag na-fertilize naman siya nung sa sperm ng X chromosome. This is trisomy 21. So, the picture of this child, no, pare-pareho sila ng, so they have similar facial features. So, this is also called as Down syndrome. So, what happens here? Part of a Down syndrome child's cell showing chromosome 21 pair with one extra chromosome. This is on pair 21, ano? So, dapat dalawa lang siya. And then, nadagdagan siya ng isa. This is an example of a Turner syndrome. It is a pathological condition found only in females in which the chromosome X is partially or entirely missing from the female, resulting in a variety of complications like developmental delays, short stature, failure to attain puberty, infertility, and cardiac abnormality. So, common sa kanila itong wide neck sa mga may Turner syndrome. Next, this is the Klinefelter's syndrome. No? There's an additional X chromosome leading to male hypogonadism. So, there's a reduced muscle mass. So, instead na pagkalalaki, may daming muscle, diba? So, yung arms niya, so parang girl. And then, there's less facial and body hair, so medyo makinis sila. There's broad hips. Can you imagine a guy with broad hips and large breasts? And increased belly fat. So, lalaki siya, pero meron siyang mga characteristics ng female. Now, let's go to prenatal testing. No? Why do we need to screen kapag kaya yung buntis? Okay, prenatal screening focuses on finding problems among a large population with affordable and non-invasive methods and commonly includes ultrasounds, blood tests, and blood pressure readings. Prenatal diagnosis focuses on pursuing additional detailed information once a particular problem has been found and can be invasive. So, una, pwede kang magpa-ultrasound, merong mga blood tests, and then blood pressure readings. Kapag may nakita na additional problem, halimbawa may nakita dun sa ultrasound na hindi maganda, pwedeng magkaroon ng invasive na procedure. Pag sinabi kasing invasive, meron tayong tinatawag na amniocentesis, no, na merong mga mahahabang karayom to check like yung amniotic fluid ng baby. So, dadaan yun dun sa tummy. Ito kasing yung screening, pag screening lang, this is non-invasive. No, walang injection, walang masyadong procedure. Screening can detect problems such as neural tube defects, anatomical chromosomal abnormalities, and gene mutations. So, dun sa ultrasound, or sa mga blood test, or sa blood pressure, pwede mong makita itong mga to. Like, especially anatomical defect. Kasi halimbawa, makikita sa ultrasound kung meron siyang cleft chin or neural tube defect yung hindi nagsara yung mga neural tube ng baby or ng fetus. Prenatal diagnosis is intended to enable timely medical or surgical treatment of a condition, to give parents the chance to abort a fetus, and to give parents the chance to better prepare for a baby with special needs. So, parang may ethical consideration here kasi ipapa-abort mo ba yung baby kapag nalaman mo na meron siyang abnormality. I think in other countries, they allow this. So here's an example of prenatal testing. So prenatal testing is an array of routine and specialized tests aimed at monitoring fetal development, evaluating maternal health, and assessing the risk of potential complications. So for every trimester merong mga testing, no, na routine. So we have first trimester, ano to? For the first prenatal visit, you have pregnancy test, blood test, urine test, and then dating ultrasound para malaman kung ilang weeks na yung baby. And then urine test if there's the presence of the hormone to para malaman nga if you are pregnant. And then other blood test naman kung yung level of iron mo sa blood or para kailangan mo ng kung anemic ka. And then first trimester screening, we have maternal blood serum and nuchal translucency. And then non-routine, this one is invasive. We have cell-free DNA tests and then chorionic villus sampling. So ito yung sinasabi ko, no, merong mahabang karayom na aabot dun sa what's this? Penetrating the uterus para makakuha ka ng sample doon inside. Then we have the second trimester test, urine tests again, like kung may protein ba, may sugar ba dun sa uric mo, diba? And then fetal heart rate monitoring. You need to know yung pulse rate, no, heart rate ng baby, and then glucose challenge screening kung baka mamaya mataas ang sugar mo, meron kang gestational diabetes. Pag gestational diabetes, you only have high blood sugar kapag ka ikaw ay pregnant. We have quad screen and then anomaly ultrasound. Ito yung sa second trimester test, these are invasive, non-routine, no, glucose tolerance test, and then amniocentesis. For the third trimester test, we have again the urine test, fetal heart rate monitoring, group B strep test, and baby kick count. So, binibilang din kung yung kick ng baby. By 5 months, gumagalaw na si baby. Yung first movement niya, that's called quickening. So, binibilang. And then for the non-routine, you have the ultrasound, non-stress test, biophysical profile, and contraction stress test. Kasi itong contraction stress test, ito yung malapit ka ng mga anak, no? Binibilang yung number of contractions. And then the biophysical profile, tinitingnan yung what's this, yung sa baby nila, yung circumference ng head, kano kahaba, even the chan, nina-measure yan. We have the prenatal genetic path. No, you can do this, no, if kung siguro kung marami kang pera, like, you can have a carrier test. For couples who are planning a family, this is preconception period. Siyempre, mag-asawa na kayo dyan. And then if you're planning to get pregnant, no, magpapatest kayong dalawa to screen si mommy at saka si daddy if you are a carrier of one or more inherited genetic conditions. Testing. And then we have a screening test, non-invasive prenatal screening, tests performed through a maternal blood sample. This is from 9-week gestation. And then diagnostic test. We have the molecular karyotype. Diagnostic test performed by RACGH technique using DNA from invasive sampling. So we have chorionic villus sampling from 11 to 13 weeks and then amniotic fluid sampling dun sa 16 to 18 weeks. So kumukuha sila ng mga sample inside the amniotic sac. Let's talk about behavioral genetics. The nature and nurture debate questions the role of heredity versus environment in our personality. Most scholars agree that there is a constant interplay between nature and nurture. While genetic predispositions are important, other factors are in part the effect of epigenetic or above the genome changes. What is this epigenetic na term? No, it describes psychological development as the result of an ongoing bidirectional interchange between heredity and environment. Pag sinabi nating bidirectional, si heredity, nai-impluwensyahan niya yung environment. And then the environment, na-impluwensyahan din niya si heredity. Okay, behavioral genetics is the science of how genes and environments work together to influence behavior and can be studied in adoption studies and twin studies. So we have here a cell with 23 pairs of chromosomes inside niya, right? So the whole human genome contains 25,000 genes packaged in every human cell. Napakadami. Okay, so the chromosome is made up of genes. And then this one, the genes naman, consist of DNA which is made up of 4 chemical letters. Diba yung adenine, yung guanine, yung cytosine. Epigenetics, the environment, like temperature, radiation, food, drugs, nutrients, produce immediate effects that can be imprinted long term. So pagka merong something in your environment like drugs and food, no, pwede ka magkaroon ng genetic mutation. So mutation here can produce genotypes or rare genetic disorder. If we're going to study behavioral genetics, we're also going to define a monozygotic twins, no, and then dizygotic twins, and then meron tayong conjoined twins, and then vanishing twins. So what is this monozygotic twins? This occur when a single zygote of fertilized egg splits apart in the first 2 weeks of development and creates 2 separate but identical offspring. So they came from one egg, nag-split. They are identical, or monozygotic. They came from one zygote. And then dizygotic or fraternal twins share the same genetic material as would any other children with the same mother and father. In the uterus, 60 to 70% of monozygotic twins share the same placenta. Placenta is a temporary organ connecting the fetus to the uterine wall, but separate amniotic sacs, a thin but tough transparent pair of membranes that hold the developing embryo or fetus until shortly before birth. And then we have conjoined twins. These are monozygotic twins whose bodies are joined during pregnancy. And then vanishing twins, as many as 1 in 8 pregnancies start out as multiples but only a single fetus is brought to full term. Merong nawala na twin na vanish. And then twin studies. This is a behavior genetic research method that involves a comparison of the similarity of monozygotic and fraternal twins. So let's talk about behavioral genetics in terms of twin studies. Okay, example here in figure 1, diba, psychiatric twin studies and their assumptions. Merong monozygotic pairs, and they are assumed to share 100% of the same genes, and they're reared together in the same family. Kambal, identical. And then we have same-sex dizygotic pairs. So pareho sila ding lalaki or pareho na babae. Assumed to share on average 50% of the same genes, reared together in the same family. So pareho tong condition, no? Ang pinagkaiba lang, yung isa monozygotic, yung isa dizygotic pair. But they are both, ito kung parehong lalaki, ito rin parehong lalaki. Okay, this main twin method assumption, there are only 2 types of twin pairs, monozygotic and dizygotic. Investigators are able to reliably distinguish between these 2 types of twin pairs. The risk of receiving the diagnosis is the same among twins and non-twins. The risk of receiving the diagnosis is the same among individual monozygotic twins as a population versus individual dizygotic twins as a population. MZ and same-sex DZ pairs grow up experiencing similar or equal behavior shaping environment. If all of the above assumptions are true, and if the psychiatric condition in question is valid and can be reliably identified, higher MZ versus same-sex DZ behavioral resemblance at a statistically significant level can be attributed to genetic factors. So, ibig sabihin, if you meet all of these conditions, kapag ka kinompare mo sila, same condition. They're reared together in the same family. They experience similar or equal behavior shaping environment. Hindi mo sila pinaghiwalay. At kapag ka nagkaroon sila ng sakit, kasi you're considering na equal, parehong-pareho, then you can attribute that to genetic factors, itong mga twins na to. At walang kinalaman ang environment kapag ka sila ay, halimbawa nagkaroon sila ng schizophrenia, that is due to their genes. Another twin studies, we have pair 3, same DNA, but different environment. So here, no, adoption studies, twins adopted by different families grow up in different environments. Identical sila, monozygotic. If intelligence is the same, it's likely due to genetics. If intelligence is different, it's likely due to environment. Here naman, we have different DNA, pero same environment. Sino to? One sibling is adopted. If intelligence is the same, it's likely due to the environment. If intelligence is different, it's likely due to genetics. So kung merong mas matalino sa kanila, but they share the same environment, so you attribute that to the genetics. Now let's have another example. We have this term, concordance. This means the amount of similarity in phenotype between a set of individuals. May be used to refer to the presence of the same trait in both members of a pair of twins. Example, yung kanina na pinag-uusapan natin na phenotype, no? Yung expression or characteristics ko. Kung may dimple yung isang kambal, meron din yung isa. So, concordance, pareho sila. Kung makulit yung isa makulit din. Kung matalino yung isa, matalino din yung isang twin. Okay? So, these are the features. Monozygotic concordance is significantly higher than dizygotic concordance. So, with that, behavior is partly due to nature. And then, MC concordance is similar to DC concordance. Kung pareho lang yung monozygotic twin, dun sa dizygotic twin, behavior is entirely due to nurture or upbringing. If the MC concordance is 100% more for monozygotic, behavior is entirely due to nature or genetics. And the MC concordance is significantly less than 100%. Behavior is partly due to nurture or upbringing. Kasi you cannot claim na it's 100% due to genetics. Dapat 100% siya if it's due to genetics na. Halimbawa, matalino yung parehong twin, 100%. I mean, may dalawang twin, yung IQ ng isa 140, yung IQ ng isa 140 pareho. Mataas ang concordance, no? Behavior is entirely due to nature or genetics. Pero kapag yung isang twin ay 90 ang IQ, yung isa 150, that is due to nurture. Next, we have adoption studies. Adoption studies tend to compare the adopted child with the biological mother and the adoptive mother to determine which has the higher concordance rate for a given behavior. Okay, halimbawa, yung adoption studies, meron kang yung anak, yung na-adopt, matalino, tapos titignan mo kung matalino ba yung biological mother niya, or titignan mo kung ang matalino yung nagpalaki sa kanya. So, para natin malaman if it's due to nature or due to nurture.